Let's have a listen to some of the students, past students, and what they learned from Be the Change.
We learned and how we felt. I learned that you can do and change anything with enough work. I also felt passionate about this project because of the cause.
I've learned so much being a part of the Be the Change group, like about how people with different abilities have worked so hard to prove that they can be treated the same and can do anything they put their minds to, just like neurotypical people.
I've learned that people with disabilities aren't too different from us. They're still human beings and deserve to be treated equally. I feel that us humans should do a better job to help the disabled community, and some acts like the curb cut helps neurotypical people too. Thank you for listening to our presentation.
We learned.
Okay, in Module 1, we discussed and learned about what is diversity and neurodiversity. We discovered how we all learn differently. We discussed language matters and how to communicate with people who have a disability. Students learned about what neurodiversity is and how our brain is wired, and that wiring can be different in different people in the way they think and learn. Students also learned 50% of the world identify as having a disability, and more than 6.2 million Canadians live with some form of a disability. It may not always be obvious to everyone what the disability is, and remember that many disabilities can be hidden. We discussed how language we use matters, that people with disabilities generally prefer person-first language. Person-first language emphasizes a person, not the disability. By placing the person first, the disability is no longer a person's primary defining characteristics. We encourage students to employ the most respectful approach, which is to simply ask the person you're interacting with how they would like to be addressed. So we give some examples, like it is a person with cerebral palsy or a student with Down syndrome, just as an example. We also discussed person-first language, encouraging students to focus on others' strengths. So for example, not portraying people with disabilities as inspirational because of their disability. Also looking at reframing disabled parking as accessible parking, or disabled washrooms as accessible washrooms. I'll hand it over to Rebecca.
Thanks, Suzanne. In Module 2, students learned about equity and inclusion, what an implicit bias is, cultural responsiveness, medical and social models of disability, and the concept of universal design learning. We use this visual seen here to try and emphasize the difference between equity and equality. As you can see here, the second picture, equality, is everyone getting exactly the same thing. But as you can also see, it doesn't always result in each person succeeding. The third picture, equity, is giving each person exactly what they need to be successful. This is often the best way to dismantle the barriers and liberate students to be able to access their communities and be the change we are working toward. In this module, we also learned how inclusion is an intentional act of welcoming diversity and creating an environment where all different students can be respected and accepted, highlighting that diversity is what you have, it's a fact, inclusion is what you do, it's an action, and that everyone has their own unique sets of abilities, so when we work together, we can use those unique traits to strive for equity, inclusion in our communities. We also took some time to discuss the medical and social models of disability. Students learned that the medical model of disability is where the person is the focus on what needs to be fixed or resolved, and the person is what needs to change to fit in. Whereas the social model highlights that people are deemed disabled by barriers in society, not by their diagnoses or differences. Throughout this module, students were challenged to recognize any implicit biases they may have and self-reflect on assumptions they have made about someone before getting to know them. Helping everyone understand their hidden biases is the key to the future. If we want all students to succeed, then we have to understand what students with a disability are dealing with and make sure that we are providing equal opportunities for all. We learned about cultural responsiveness and the importance of how bringing honor to where we come from amplifies culture in our schools and classrooms. Culturally responsive practices involve recognizing and incorporating the assets and strengths all students bring to the classroom and ensuring all the experiences in the school are relevant to all students. We see students' cultural knowledge as the power to empower them. Cultural interests and backgrounds cannot be left out of school environment. When we know more about cultural backgrounds of students, we can do better to create an inclusive environment in school. Finally, in Module 2, the students learned about the concept of universal design learning. To highlight this, we talked about the curb cut effect on the sidewalk. The curb cutout was originally designed to benefit people who use a wheelchair, but in the end, it actually ended up benefiting a larger number of people, like those who push strollers or people pulling shopping buggies. Universal design for learning works in a similar way, with the goal being considering all the ways we can reduce barriers in the classrooms by providing supports and accommodations that the majority of students would benefit from, thereby increasing their opportunities to succeed in the classroom. Module 3, our last module, focused on the concepts of ableism, intersectionality, understanding allyship, and what activism is. And we then finished with the opportunity to hear from the schools as to what their inclusive projects were going to be. First, students had the opportunity to learn about ableism. Have you ever talked about what a person can't do because of their disabilities? During this module, students had an opportunity to learn that focusing on what a person can't do is ableism, an inherent bias against people with a disability. Students also had an opportunity to learn more about the concept of intersectionality, which refers to the way race, gender, class, and other parts of who we are intersect and overlap one another. We all come from different backgrounds and experience the world differently as a result. Knowing about intersectionality helps students understand that each person is complex and that many factors contribute to one's identity and lived experiences. Intersectionality encourages each student to look at the whole picture and all the different factors that could impact their identity and experience in school. So here's a short video now explaining some examples of ableism and more of a discussion on intersectionality.
And ableist language greatly contributes to the stigmatization of disability. Intersectionality refers to the interconnectedness of social and political identities and the influence of them on our experience of discrimination and privilege. We are complex creatures with multiple identities. All of you have multiple identities. We are not just one identity. I am very aware that my experience being disabled is influenced by my being white and being male. Those two identities are facts. They give me privilege even within the disability community, as does my socioeconomic status. And that is privilege that I did nothing to earn. It's because of how I was born. I use that to do good, though. I try to use my privilege as leverage to do good in the disabled community. I know that the experience of being female, for example, with disability can be entirely different from mine and less privileged, just as being a different race makes living with a disability frequently more challenging, and you are more likely to face discrimination. What does that mean for you in terms of understanding disability? Know your identities and privilege or lack of privilege. If you do not have a disability, you are privileged. Remember, your privilege can be kept in check if you are aware of your biases you have about disability. Your awareness can make you more empathetic to others with disabilities whose other identities make them more likely to face greater challenges and discrimination.
So following the learning modules, the students then had the opportunity to be the change within their own schools. We're now going to highlight 3 schools and their Be the Change projects, starting with Don Mills Collegiate Institute. Don Mills embraced a project that impacted not just the intensive support program students, but the school community as a whole. They recognized the food insecurity of many students and families and developed a food bank at the school. They incorporated the students from the DD classrooms who developed so many important skills, from sorting the food and stocking the shelves to communication skills and practicing job readiness skills. The Be the Change student leaders and DDISP class students created the food bank and empty classroom. They reached out to community food partners who donated items such as pasta, cereal, rice, and canned goods. The students assisted with sorting the food types, lifting and unpacking boxes, which helped develop fine motor skills, and stacking the shelves, which helped to practice one's visual spatial skills as well. The Be the Change school team developed a collaborative approach, giving the students individual jobs to do, which is an important part of building self-esteem and confidence. Not only did the students at Don Mills Collegiate create this project for the year, they were able to secure community partners to ensure sustainability for years to come, which is an important focus of the project. The second school we wanted to highlight is George Webster. They took on 3 initiatives through Be the Change: the Grind Bake Group, the Make a Sandwich, Make a Difference Club, and an Expressive Arts Club. In the words of the students themselves, overall, our Be the Change art and baking clubs provided new George Webster students clubs that were accessible and open to both neurodiverse and neurotypical students. Valuable space for students of all abilities to create and grow together in a fun, inclusive environment. The grade 8 students at George Webster, along with the DDISP students, participated in Baking Club together, creating delicious baked goods that were sold, with the proceeds going to supporting many of the school's programs. Bake Club not only provided the school community with healthy home-baked treats, but also the opportunity for the ISP-enrolled students to work with the rest of the school community, making for an inclusive and fun environment. George Webster students with all varying abilities were also able to join and participate in a sandwich club designed to serve their local community. This club allowed the students to learn a functional life skill while also supporting the community by providing food to some local shelters. And lastly, we have Silverthorne, who were a new school to join the Be the Change project in 2023-2024. They were inspired by George Webster's project, and we will let the Silverthorne students speak for themselves.
Hi, I'm Selena. Our Be the Change group started an inclusion project at Silverthorne with a bakery. We were inspired by the work of students at George Webster. The primary and junior DD classes work with the grade 5-6 students at our school every day. The shop is open for 1 period. Everything is $1 and we sell 5 different products. This is a great way to encourage the functional academic with the students in the ISP program, and a way to get students from throughout the school to interact with students they don't see outside for recess.
Such great work being done there.
Hi.
And that is the end of our presentation. We hope you've enjoyed learning about all the amazing work going on within the TDSB and have motivated you to be the change as well. Now, Suzanne and I would like to thank you for joining us and are happy to take any questions or comments you may have.